Hi everyone, new video today, and I know that it's been longer than usual. TBT to when I said that there'd be a new video every Wednesday at 4 p.m. I stuck to that schedule literally never. But yeah, I've been really busy and honestly just not really focusing on adoption stuff. Sometimes I just need to take a break from it because posting these videos is pretty tiring. It makes me remember a lot of unhappy times in my life and just kind of open up and be really vulnerable, and that's not the easiest thing to do. So sometimes I'll just disappear, but I'm back. Here's a question. I can focus on something for a very long time, so watching long videos isn't a problem for me, and I kind of just assumed that everyone watching would prefer shorter videos. But since I've been making shorter videos, the number of views has gone down. So do you want long videos? I really didn't think people wanted me to be talking for a long time, but maybe you guys do. I don't know. Something I get asked a lot is, tell me about when you were first told you were adopted. And I can't do that because I just always knew. And it's not because I'm a transracial adoptee. I understood that I looked different from my mom and dad, but you know, as a little kid isn't going to immediately think, oh, I look different from my parents because I'm adopted. My parents just always told me. That's just what I knew. I knew that I was in another mommy's tummy, and then I was born, and then I was adopted. It's kind of worrisome to me when I hear about other people being able to recall exactly when they found out they were adopted. It's especially troublesome when an adoptee tells me, yeah, I didn't know until I was like 18. And it's hard for me to imagine that because that's who you are. It doesn't matter if your adoptive family is great, like mine, or not so great. There's still that separation from your biological family. And for many of us, we have no idea who that family is. It's so hard for me to imagine someone growing up thinking that they weren't adopted and they knew everything about their identity, and then all of a sudden, oh, no, actually, you were adopted. That's crazy to me. Along those lines is how all of this information about us is ours. It's triggering to see parents oversharing. I know I've talked about this a lot, only sharing your perspective of the story, but there's so much oversharing, and especially now, and especially with transracial adoption, it's almost like adoptive parents use their adoptees as accessories, as ways to get more views and follows on social media, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. This is really objectifying a child. You are not being protective. I'm posting my story because it's mine. I want to own it. I want to take control of it. And I'm almost 24 years old. I can control what people see, and I am giving permission to what I want you to see. But whenever I see adoptive parents sharing so much about young adoptees, I think, wow, what if my adoptive parents had done that and then I grew up and saw my entire life all over social media? And it's very obvious when it's being used for the likes and the follows, and it's just gross. I strongly believe that adopted people need to be aware that they're adopted from day one. It's who you are, and I think you need to have as much access to information as possible. I understand when the stories are very mature and probably inappropriate for adoptees to know when they're young. As an adoptee gets older, they have a right to know their own story. And adoptees also have a right to be able to share or keep private their story. Here's the thing that a lot of people don't understand about social media, and I keep this in mind a lot, which might be surprising because I do post a lot. But once something's out online, anyone can access it at any time, and even if you delete something, it's still out there. I think people gain this false sense of security in these quote-unquote private Facebook groups, except most of these groups have thousands of people in it, and you have no idea if people are screenshotting and sharing or remembering what you say about your kid. It's really, really, really worrisome. So to tie this all together, an adoptee has the right to know that they're adopted. That is not something that should be hidden. I know there's like, oh, I just want to raise them as my own, blah, blah, blah. That's great. Do that. Tell them they're adopted. Tell them that there's a biological family that they're not with. And also, tell them any other information that you know. I mean, there are these stories that adoptees tell me of how their adoptive parents knew their biological family and hid it from them. They changed information in their documents. That is ridiculous. You are taking away someone's identity. Actually, multiple people's identities, because you're messing with the biological family and the adoptee at that point. And it makes me so mad, because I think the people who hide the information and change information in an effort to protect their child, I think the majority of those people have the luxury of knowing their own biological family, have the luxury of knowing exactly where they came from, knowing things like medical history. Many of us don't even know that. But if someone knew that and was hiding it from me, oof, that would not be good at all. I'd have some choice words for that individual. I'm just going to repeat myself again. Tell an adoptee everything about their story, and then let them share it when they're ready. Because, as I always say, it's not your story, it's theirs. And you can have one perspective in it, but sharing a bunch of personal information about your adopted child or their biological family is an invasion of privacy. So this video might be a little longer because I brought in Adam to ask me some questions. So,
were you curious about your adoption when you were little?
Not really curious about my adoption. Obviously, I was curious about my biological family and where I came from, but it was very normal that I came to my family through adoption. So my parents had children's books about it and stuff that I would read, and it became very normalized. The actual act of adoption, I wasn't curious about, but where I came from in my biological family, that is what I always wanted to know.
You touched on this a little bit at the beginning, but how did your parents describe adoption to you when you were little? Like, what kind of language did they use?
They basically just said that I had a mother in China and she gave birth to me, and then for whatever reason she chose for another family to raise me, and that's how I came to my adoptive family. Language is very important. They basically said, you know, I was in another woman's tummy, because, I don't know, do kids know what the word stomach is? Yeah, I had a birthday, and then I came to the US. But I think using, like, the term first mom would be good, or biological mom if your adopted child knows what that means. I see people use the phrase tummy mommy a lot, and I don't like that, because it makes it seem like this woman, her only job was to grow a baby inside of her. Like, that's not cool. Paper pregnant, also not cool at all. So really think about the phrasing you're using and how adoptees and first families are going to read it and perceive it, because we are very important parts of the story, and unfortunately a lot of adoptive parents seem to forget that, and it's all about me, I'm quote unquote paper pregnant, and this is my kid's tummy mommy, and no one likes to read that.
And lastly, what do you think parents can say when people, I guess, pry about their child's adoption story before the adoptee themselves is old enough to share it?
That's a great question, because I know there are so many parents of young adoptees, and sometimes it seems like you can't avoid oversharing. I mean, you can just say, honestly, that's private information, and I don't want to overshare. This is sensitive information for my adoptee, and they can share that information when they're comfortable with it. I think it is so much better to protect the information, even at the risk of being rude, than oversharing, and then this kid grows up and they're like, what the heck? Why do all these people know about my story, know these intimate details? These details, the adoptee might not even know at that point. Does the adoptee know the information already? If not, you definitely should not be sharing it. And is the information even pertaining to you and your perspective? Because I don't think a child's relinquishment story really involves the adoptive parents ever. They come in once the adoption takes place.
I have a follow-up question. Do you think it would be smart then for adoptive parents to discuss between themselves before the adoption, like what kinds of things they know and what they should say to people who ask about it?
Definitely. And I don't think a lot of people actually do that. And at the risk of losing some subscribers, whatever, I'm just going to say it. I think the savior narrative and the savior complex really takes over when it comes to adoption. And yeah, I'm going to say it. There's a reason why so many narcissists adopt. And it's a lot of the, look at the terrible situation that my child was in and look at how I saved them. No, I'm not saying all adoptive parents are narcissists and all of them have the savior complex. That's not what I'm saying. But I don't think discussing what to share and when happens a lot, and I think it needs to happen all the time. So it's not just, okay, we're about to adopt a kid, what do we want to tell people? It's as that kid goes through their journey, what changes and what will the adoptee want to share on their own? Do they give you permission to share things for them? That's something I see a lot in groups. Parents are saying, well, my kid feels this, blah, 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 blah. They experience this, da, 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 da. And this is why you should feel this way. And I'm like, are you absolutely positive your kid is telling you everything? Because I did not tell my parents a lot. All of my videos pretty much have the same theme. Share your own story and let adoptees know their stories. Okay, that was the video. I'm going to be filming again soon because I am going to be a speaker at an adoption conference that I'm super, super excited about. So I'll give you more details about that. I have an adoption Instagram specifically for adoption, and on it I use like this quote maker website or something, and I just post these little blurbs of what I'm feeling or an experience that I had. So if you want to connect with me on Instagram, I'm adoptee Lilly. That's my handle. I think that's it. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.